Welcome everyone. I'm Angie Garber with the Marketing Department here at AdvisaCon. For those of you who are new to AdvisaCon's webinar series, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about us. Our mission is to boost your project management efficiencies by optimizing your processes and technologies, creating measurable results that empower you and your organization. AdvisaCon has over 20 years in the project management industry and is a gold-level partner with Microsoft. No matter your company size, our team specializes in maximizing your business and personal productivity by leveraging the Microsoft technology experience. For those of you who join us on a weekly basis, you know today's session is part of our weekly series we refer to as Webinar Wednesday. Each week the topic is different and designed to give you helpful information that will have a direct impact on your day-to-day tasks. Today's webinar session will be a half-hour in length, which means it also qualifies for half a PDU. I will give you more information about that at the end of our time together. If you have any questions or need clarification during our time together, please utilize the question section of the control panel. We will do our best to address them during our session, but if we are unable to, please know that we will reach out shortly afterwards with the answer. It is now my pleasure to welcome today's presenters. AdvisaCon's President and Founder and Microsoft MVP, Mr. Tim Runcie, and AdvisaCon's Director of Technical Service, Mr. Jeff Post. Gentlemen?
Thanks, Angie. Welcome, everyone, to Webinar Wednesday. This is kind of a fun opportunity. We're actually getting down into a little bit more of the technical details. I'd like to introduce Jeff Post, not only an insanely funny guy, but he has been one of my colleagues working across the aisles on many different projects and is heading up our technical services division, especially around the implementations for on-premise. When it comes to on-premise, he is a SME. And so, Jeff, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about you?
Hi, everybody. Jeff Post here. Basically, I started my background years ago as an Army signal officer, where I got I guess a thirst for adventure in that. And after I got out of the military, I decided I was going to learn to fly. I was going to learn to jump out of perfectly serviceable airplanes, and I was going to plumb the depths of the ocean as well. So I've had a bunch of great experiences, and that's what my life has basically been like as far as experiences in the professional world as well. It's been exciting like that. So in 2007, I started working with Project Server big time, and I've been doing it since then. So I guess that's it in a nutshell.
Excellent. Well, I wanted to just refresh everyone on today's agenda, and a lot of people have been asking questions about Project Server on-premise, Project Server online, the cloud. You know, are they going to take away the on-premise environment? How does it all work? So inherently, we're going to cover why on-premise versus the cloud. We'll get into some of the server details. We can talk about the differences between, say, 2013, if you're using that environment, and 2016, especially from the on-premise side of things. And then we'll get into implementation processes, best practices, and I think this is very important because it sets the tone to ensure that you do things right, especially when you're installing and configuring that. And then we'll talk about the do's and don'ts with a summary and wrap-up. But as Angie mentioned, if you have any questions, absolutely put them in the chat window, or if you want to reach out at another time. This is what we love to talk about, is helping organizations leverage the technology correctly. And so if you're struggling with this is a great opportunity to just kind of pick our brains, see if we can help you, maybe if it's sometimes just a nudge in the right direction. So let's talk a little bit about where does Project Server come from, and we kind of laugh about this, how are babies made? And so in this case, we talk about the space-time continuum of project and project online, and literally it is the space-time continuum here, is that if we talk about from the use of what we call Project Online, a lot of people are familiar with Project Server in the early days, but Microsoft has this evergreen environment. So when we talk about, what version is it, well, it's always current. But what happens is that at a point in time, the Microsoft team says, this is perfect. What I want to do is I'm going to lock this down. I've got a version that I can drop on-premise. And so what they do is they basically take what they call the bits, and as of May of 2016, they move those down into a static state. That means if you deploy Project Server, short of you doing a cumulative update, it's not going to be changing. Things won't appear and disappear or get moved or modified. And so that's both a blessing and a curse if you're in the online environment, is that no, you didn't install it, but then also things are being turned on and changed and modified as they go through. It's evergreen. But Project Server on-premise opens up other opportunities. It really does provide some things that you don't get with the cloud environment, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So a lot of people are asking, hey, should I stay on premise? Is the cloud this wonderful place that, everyone's talking about, or is it more of a mushroom cloud in terms of, be careful what you wish for. And I think what we're hoping to do today is just help you understand about the on-premise environment. We'll talk about some of the differences because there is still a need for an on-premise environment in a lot of organizations, agencies, companies, and even sometimes if we talk about looking at setting up and configuring a static environment, there's a lot of benefits for having access to that. So Jeff, why don't we kind of jump in here and talk a little bit about, why server on-premise versus the cloud?
Sure. Just before we do though, Tim, I'm just wondering, is everybody able to see the presentation slides? Because I might be experiencing a bit of a technical difficulty here.
Well, I'm showing. Angie, are we 5x5 on the video?
Yes, I can see it. And I don't see any reason why Jeff would not.
Okay. Well, I've got the slides. I've got the slides in front of me, so I can do it that way. Mine shows attendees still on hold. So at any rate, okay, let's get going here. So why Project Server on-premise versus the cloud? Basically, when Microsoft decided to take Project Server to the cloud, there was a number of things that, because they go right against the databases there and do things directly, they couldn't give everybody access to the databases for security reasons. They had to take some things out of Project Server, rework some things, and make it work a little bit differently. Notifications and reminders came out because you don't have necessarily the Exchange integration. Administrative backup and restore that occurred in the databases came out. Some additional reporting options with direct access to the databases and the cubes came out. And they have substituted new reporting technology for the cloud, but it is slow by comparison to on-premise options because you've got that total bandwidth in your own environment to be able to access all of the reporting technology. Team Foundation server integration came out, but there is ways of doing that. In fact, Advisicon has a connector which will allow you to connect your Project Server online environment to TFS. So that's that, and I'd say on to the next slide, Tim.
Sure, let me jump in here with a couple points. So again, remember that with a cloud environment, because it is either a multi-user tenant, Microsoft absolutely has to lock down and protect their security. So that's one of the reasons you just don't get access to the back end. In fact, even the technical teams in the engineering teams do not have access to the back end because they protect the data. They really have a left hand and a right hand, and so they really disconnect the customer names, customer information from data. And they take this very seriously, which again, for those of us who are used to working with an on-premise environment, we know how to manipulate data. We can go to the cubes, we can go right to the tables. So there is some performance issues in terms of how fast reports were load and run, and we hear a lot about that, and you'll actually see those in the chat blogs and things that are out there around how to make that work. And while Microsoft will continue to improve, the on-premise again still gives you immediate and direct and complete control of your environment. Okay, next slide.
Okay, so the key differences between Project Server 2016 and 2013, one of the major differences is that if you're going to be doing customizations, you can't use the Project Server interface anymore. Well, because that's sort of a direct way of coding. Instead, they've come up with another model called the Client-Side Object Model, or CSOM for short, and you can use calls from that. Now, that is going up sort of evolutionary process, so it isn't as capable as the old project server interface was, but it is something that you can use to customize project server online and project server on-premise. Resource plans and the My Tasks have been deprecated in Project Server 2016, and there's resource engagements to replace resource plans. In SharePoint 2016, there's a number of things that have been taken out as well, or that don't work anymore. And we can see that they're starting to move away from things like SharePoint Foundation and get into, especially since they've included Project Server in the binaries for SharePoint 2016, and you just get it now, and then you have to activate it with a key. They have taken that out, and they said, okay, it's enterprise, basically. Things like Forefront Identity Manager have sort of fallen off the end, and there's other solutions to do what it used to do. Excel Services does not run in SharePoint anymore. It was taken out as well, and they've gone to more of a model like they have with the Workflow Server, which was removed in 2013 and disconnected. So now there's the thing called Office Online Server that runs your Excel services. And a few other things, tags and notes, and the work management service were taken out as well. So that's those are the major differences.
Yeah, think of it this way. You've got kind of this evolving environment. Remember, SharePoint is even letting go of things that it used to control to Office 365. So believe it or not, even as Office 365 is a brand, it is also a functional environment. So we think about videos, how you work with the business end of project. Instead of having a resource plan, you have something called resource engagements. And so some of the structure has been modified and has changed. There's some big differences, at least in key areas that you're going to see if you're going from a 13 to a 16 environment. Again, some of it, if you're looking at demos and videos that are out there, they talk about the business end. But there is also an architectural improvements that are happening to try and streamline that. But it is a little bit of a surprise for those who kind of expect to see the same thing that they found in 2013. Will not find those in 2016. All right, next slide.
Okay, so the next slide is about SharePoint BI capabilities. Now, some of these capabilities do exist in 2013 to a certain extent. There is Power Pivot, for example, but it works differently in Project Server 2016 with SQL 2016, and that's an important distinguishing feature. You must have SQL 2016 for the features you see on this page to work. If your database is SQL 2014, doesn't work. If it's 2012, doesn't work. So these features come with SQL 2016. So if you are thinking about deploying on-premise, that's one of the things you need to do. And not only that, but if you want to get the full functionality, it has to be SQL 2016 Enterprise. So that's one of the major differences in reporting.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go on to the next slide.
Hold on, Jeff. So a couple things. So one of the areas, think of it this way. If you work really hard to build schedules and your PMs and PMO teams are wanting to mine and model that data, a lot of times people will deploy Project Server. In fact, we have many customers where we'll come in and they say, hey, we just can't get our reports to work. And what they did is they installed the application, but they didn't turn on business intelligence. And so why work this hard to actually not be able to get access to your data? So we really encourage people to provision correctly so you do have access and intelligence. You can use that for analytics, views, and reports, and things that will help you interpret the data that you're capturing and managing. So as your team members are putting in time against estimates, you could look at trending and analysis. There's some great, out-of-the-box reporting tools that come. You just need to make sure that's provisioned. Next slide talks about mini roles, and that's always kind of funny. People go, what? Mini roles? So I put a picture of Microsoft's new mini roles there, and no, those are not the mini roles that that you're going to get when you basically download the licensing keys. But Jeff, tell them a little bit about what a mini role is and why it's so important, and then we'll maybe go lightly across some of the key things, some of the key mini roles.
So mini roles are a construct that Microsoft came out with to allow people to scale their farms easier. For example, if you have a web front-end server, you want to have some services on that do the web front-end stuff. If you want to have an application server, you want to have services on that are tuned for the application server. So what they did is they came out with 6 mini roles to address different features of project server and SharePoint performance in big farms, especially big farms like they run for the cloud. If you're actually running just a small implementation of project server for, say, up to 500 users, then probably you don't need to get too concerned with mini roles except when you're building the system. So let's just take a look at what these 6 roles are.
Okay.
And
Here we
go from there.
First role. Yeah, front end.
So the front end, it's the web server, the web front end, which services all the HTTP requests into the farm and then dispatches them to wherever they have to go to return your results to you. So note that it says these servers are optimized for low latency so that you get things happening fast and get good turnaround. If we go to the next slide, the next mini role would be for the application server, and you can see the services that are basically representative of that. And note that these servers are optimized for high throughput because they're going to be doing a lot of stuff, and they need to service these requests and get them back to get served back to the user by the web front end. If we go to the next one, the distributed cache, that's a server that caches different things to provide performance to the rest of the system, so it doesn't have to go to disk, it doesn't have to go here or there to get things. They're readily available, and it improves performance. The next slide would be the mini role for the search server. Again, the search server is a server that does different types of things like crawls data sources and indexes those results. So it's doing something that's, basically different from most of the other servers in the farm. So the search service is quite unique that way. So it was broken out into a mini role as well. The next one is the custom mini role, and the custom mini role is, I guess, the catch-all for if you want to build yourself a server and you find that these other mini roles don't fit, then you can use the custom mini role and you can customize it to have the services on there that you want to have. And in single server farms, you would probably end up using this custom mini role, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Even though if we go to the next slide, it says, okay, here's a mini role for a single server farm. While it's true that this is a mini role for a single server farm, it does have a few missing things, and one of the things that's missing from here is reporting services. So if you build your farm and you install reporting services, and then things go on, fine for a while, and then you decide you need to reboot your server for your single server farm, you will find that reporting services does not start back up because it isn't one of the mini roles. It isn't one of the services that is a part of the mini roles for that farm, and you have to go into PowerShell and start it explicitly. So that's something that can catch you, and you can wonder, well, why isn't everything working? So that's why I say that if you're going to have your own single server farm, it's probably, and you're going to have a lot of stuff on it, it's probably going to end up being in the custom role. Okay, so that's basically mini roles in a nutshell as well. Let's go on to the next slide. Which is about project server architecture. I did talk about Excel services being moved out of SharePoint, and you can see the top server in the diagram at on the right is called Office Online Server. This is another new product that Microsoft has, and that's where the Excel services and Office services run that the system uses. It requires some special setup, and there's documentation on Microsoft about how to do that. I'm going to talk a little bit about it here, but not very much. But you can see that Microsoft has gradually, for scalability purposes, been shifting certain specialized functions out of SharePoint itself and into their own types of servers. Workflow Server came out in 2013, and now Office Online Server in 2016. But that's a basic type of farm. That'd be a really quite scalable farm if you use this architecture. Note that there's many different disks on this, and those are disk channels so that your I/O doesn't get caught up just going to one disk and getting into wait states, because SharePoint and Project Server are very I/O intensive applications. And it shows out how you can scale your farm afterwards. So the advantages of this for Microsoft too, and for us, are that you got the one single set of binaries, so you don't have to update Foundation and have to update Enterprise and then have to update Project Server. There's not 3 sets of updates. There'll be less sets of updates. And like I said before, SQL Server 2016 Enterprise is required for full reporting functionality. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. And that would be the implementation process.
Yeah, implementation process number 1 and 2, we actually broke this up into 2 slides. There's a lot of best practices, and while we won't read every line here, one of the things that we are hearing from a lot of people who are actually attempting to do this on their own is they're having a hard time finding documentation or how it's organized. And so hopefully today we can help kind of steer you in the right direction, kind of put those together. But again, I'll encourage you that if you're wrestling with this, just pick up the phone, give us a call. Sometimes it's a short answer. Jeff, why don't we lead them through some of the key elements in our the two slides that we've got here for them.
Sure. So the first thing is the AutoSP installer. You can find it at that URL that you see on the screen, and that makes installing SharePoint and Project Server so much easier. At AdvisoCon, we've been using the AutoSP installer for about, I guess, 5 years now, approximately. And all our installs are scripted so that they come out more exact. Things get named right in the databases. It's a really, really good tool. So I highly recommend you go there and take a look at that. If you are going to use the AutoSP installer for 2016, then you want to use the single server farm mini role. I'd say to do your initial installation. You can make it more complex. You can do parallel installs of other servers at the same time, but it's a complex system. I suggest you keep it simple and do one server at a time. One thing just to point out, I would not recommend configuring Project Server with the AutoSP installer because it does it in a slightly different way than is standard, and can cause you some issues. There's some certain new prerequisites, Microsoft Identity Manager that you need to install, and you need to actually make sure you have that VM for Office Online Server or physical machine and install that. Same with Workflow Server. When you do configure your Project Server system, once you've got everything installed, you can simply turn it on with a PowerShell command and a license key. So you don't have to go off and install separate binaries anymore like you had to with 2013. I recommend that you create an extra content database for your PWA sites and keep those separate from the rest of the content in the web application that you host Project Server in. Create a managed path if necessary. Sometimes it's necessary to do that. And you provision PWA with PowerShell. It's not done out of the user interface like it was before. So you just need to note that so you know you're not confused when, hey, for the first time you don't see it there, like I was the very first time. So
that's a painful laugh, by the way.
that's right. Also, if you're configuring the cube, there's some additional software that's required and you need to have that as well. Let's go to the next slide.
Jeff, I think you cut out there. Can you hear us? Angie, can you hear my screen here?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm
not sure what Jeff...
I've just sent him a message. We'll see. I think he might have...
He's probably just chewing along here. So while we're waiting Jeff to Welcome back. Let me continue the conversation here. So as you go through, we talk about the configuration of Power Pivot. Remember, the whole idea is that this should be done before you turn on your SSRS. Remember, we're setting up the environment. And so there's opportunities for you to install your Power Pivot and make sure you do that before you do reporting services. Basically, there's elements that aren't just not going to work if you have it on a SharePoint server. And as we talk about using that custom role, remember that custom mini role, this is a great area to make that available through and to manage that from. Again, the idea is that you don't want to be switching between different roles at different times. Also around configuring SQL reporting services is that you want to switch that server to the custom role. And as far as making sure that's available, just pay attention. Remember that the Excel services is no longer running inside of your SharePoint environment. As well as the configuration of the project server application. The idea is a lot of times we talk about the enterprise project types. So for those of you that are business users, we talk about EPTs, defining in terms of the application, which is an enterprise project type would be saying, hey, this is an IT project versus this is a, maybe it's a financial project, and setting up these enterprise project types. So as Jeff was talking earlier about some of the configuration that happens afterwards, a lot of times when you're deploying that, you can create a project plan in terms of your templates, your SharePoint sites can be attached to an enterprise project template. And the idea is that you want to go through there and add any additional custom fields as you need to. Again, as we think through that process. Jeff, you back?
I seem to be back. GoToMeeting crashed on me.
Sorry about that. Usually it's pretty stable. So I was just working through, I'm down in the middle of the third section here on implementation process number 2, just talking about the configuration of the product server application itself. So we're getting past the EPTs. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's really good. I'll just finish up one thing on the first 2 points about Power Pivot and reporting services. The first time I did it, I configured reporting services, but I found that it was turned off automatically because it was in the wrong server mini role, and then so it can get very confusing if you don't do these things in the right order. But once you've got it all installed and you've got things checked out and working, then you can go on and do the other things that Tim was talking about. One last thing I'll mention is you need to go in there and examine your Windows application events log and make sure that everything is working there. Don't just assume it is before you turn it over into production. So that finishes my points for this slide. Tim, unless you had some other ones you want to talk about.
Yeah, no, let me just wrap up. So again, from the server configuration, so that the third bullet, not the fourth one, really in many cases is if you haven't had training or if you haven't used Project Server in the past, this is some of what we call the administrator role. And what's a nice thing here is it's not an IT technical administrator, it's really a business administrator that's really defining, you know, what kind of fields show up when you go to project. When I go to my views, really you kind of set that up, turning on and off your timesheets. And so we know we've done some webinars and training, and we do classes on this. In fact, we've written books on these pieces. But it is important not just to just turn it on and then hand it over. Even if you think about some of the sites that are being provisioned in the project online, is to give you this demo tenant, but it's clean, it's out of the box, but then there's nothing in there. So you want to continue that conversation in terms of setting it up in your implementation process. All right, next slide here really are some key issues, and there's a lot of text here, so again, we'll try and summarize these for you. I know you guys can watch the recording and go back and forth over that, but Jeff, let's kind of talk about some of the key pain points.
Okay, it is more complex in Project Server 2013. You have more server roles, mini roles, and VM roles, like the Office Online server that you have to configure, and you have to get all these things working together, and there's a bunch of PowerShell you have to search down to do that. It's about a 40 to 80 hour installation depending upon how much problem you have overcoming some of the issues. Especially things like Kerberos constrained delegation that you need to use to set up Office Online Server. Documentation is scattered all over Microsoft. Most of the documentation I read through was still for the Community Technology Preview, even though it's been out for a while as RTM, so documentation can be a problem. Power Pivot requires Silverlight to work correctly, but Silverlight does not work in the new Edge browser on Windows 10. Just so you know. To overcome that, you can go to a different view in the Power Pivot gallery that doesn't use Silverlight, so you can get around that. Mini roles will sabotage you if you haven't set them right, and you're running a mini role that doesn't have some of your services natively defined for it, because the next time it starts, it won't start it, and you'll have lost some functionality. And here's an interesting one too. Whenever I was setting up reporting, before I just go in with a farm account, set up everything and do it. But reporting does not work for service accounts, so you have to have a separate domain account to test reporting in. So that's that.
Excellent.
So I'd say on to the definite do slide.
Yeah.
Make sure you install Power Pivot for SSRS. I think it's a good thing to learn and understand Power Pivot and Power View and know what they do. So that has a lot of the power encapsulated in it that you can get out of Project Server. Understand the mini roles and where they'll help you and where they'll sabotage you. Use a lot of PowerShell scripts and use SQL 2016 Enterprise. Those are the main do's.
Let me chime in here on the Power Pivot and Power View. So one of the things I really can't emphasize enough is the fact that, you know, if you begin thinking about Excel services, or you're even thinking about Power BI, is that you're going to be using some of these same tools over and over again, regardless of whether it's Project Server data. If you want to be using it against other data types. So there's a lot of elements that these will build from. So if you're kind of a back-end installer and you're kind of watching this video, or you're here today, or you're thinking about it from a business level, and maybe you're a business analyst trying to evaluate that, these are some great components that you're going to see used over and over again. So it's well worth the investment to pick up and learn and understand those. So let me hit the don'ts as we're kind of nearing our end of our time here.
Right, and don't not do the do's. I mean, the do's you see there, pay attention to them, because if you don't do them, you will get hung up. So make sure that you do things completely and correctly as possible. It's not easy. It's quite a bit more complex in 2013. There's all kinds of ways that it won't work for you if you don't do it just right. Don't configure Project Server with the AutoSP installer. It won't give you the results you want. Don't use SQL 2014 or 2012, because they'll have that loss of functionality for Power Pivot and the reporting functionality. And those are the don'ts.
Yeah, there's actually a short list of don'ts. It's really go do the do's. I think that's helpful. And, you know, Jeff and I kind of put a swag as far as time goes out there, but, you know, it takes time for things to install. There's layers that still need to be done if you're on premise. Some people like to go to the cloud because there is no install, but again, there's a lot more accessibility and capability in terms of what you're able to do with your data, how you get to manage it, back up and recover if you're on premise. So again, follow the steps, kind of unfold it and set it up, and if you need help, let us know. Let's talk about some of the high-level topics, things that around Project Server. So our next slide. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, this slide just reiterates some things, but plan carefully. Keep things simple. Like single server farm is nice and simple, but make sure you set your mini roles correctly if you're doing that. It's more complex. And that's a good reason for keeping it simple. Use SQL 2016 Enterprise so that you get everything you can out of it, and learn about Kerberos constrained delegation so that you can set up your Office Online server correctly.
Our next slide, we put a series of links out here, and I know all of you are going to quickly grab your pens and papers and write this all down, and of course that's a joke, but the idea is that there is information, and we just kind of summarize some of the key learning points for different areas here. So if you want to take a picture of that, or if you want to kind of rewind the recording, because these will be going out to YouTube, definitely want to make sure we can point you in the right direction. Again, we're talking about an enterprise system. A lot of people think Project Server, oh, hey, I just installed it very simply. Understand, we're talking about an ERP system. You know, if you were doing an Oracle ERP system, you wouldn't just kind of wing in a prayer. You really do want to plan it and approach it. And there is a lot of information that will help you kind of move through that. And here are some of the links that are out there that are public that'll help. Jeff, did you want to say anything about these links before we conclude?
No, it's just a good basic set to get you started. You'll find others as well as you're going, but yeah, these provide a lot of the basic knowledge about where the PowerShell is and what you need to do, etc. So, yeah,
wonderful.
Starter references.
All right. Well, again, as I mentioned, we will put this out onto YouTube, and we enjoy helping people solve their technology problems, especially around supporting project program and portfolio technologies. So if you get stuck with it or you don't even want to wrestle with that, do give us a call. Still a lot of fun. You can email Jeff or myself here at AdvisoCon. And in terms of both the business front end and back end, this is what we do. We love it, and it's a lot of fun. Angie, let me hand this back over to you so you can wrap up and help people get their PDUs.
Thanks, Tim. That was a lot of great information. Now, I'd like to invite those interested in having an opportunity to explore some of the Microsoft technologies that you've seen demonstrated in our sessions, such as Microsoft Project, SharePoint, Visio, Power BI, or anything with Office 365. We would love to set you up with a free trial and demonstration for you and your team, so please feel free to reach out and we can get that set up for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of our time together, today's session does qualify for half a PDU. The only thing I need you to do is to fill out the short survey that will appear in your browser once I close this session. Our webinar Wednesdays are designed with you in mind and are largely made by you, as each topic is based off your comments and input. So please give us your feedback and we will do our best to accommodate. Once I receive your survey input, you will receive an email from me on Friday with the PDU number. As Tim mentioned, today's session is recorded and will be uploaded to AdvisoCon's YouTube channel later today. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel, I highly recommend it, as it contains recordings from our previous sessions along with several additional tutorials and how-to videos which are very helpful. With that being said, I believe we've covered everything. If you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out directly to Tim, Jeff, myself, or any of us here at AdvisoCon via our website or by phone. We are here for you and we would love to answer any questions you have. On behalf of myself, Tim, Jeff, and the AdvisoCon team, we want to thank you for joining us and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.